Hi all. I, male 35, was married to my ex-wife, female 34, for 7 years. 2 years ago, my ex-wife came out as homosexual. This came as a complete shock to me. She and her partner were co-workers who had an affair since she joined the company a year before our divorce. We have a son together, 8M. This came as a complete shock to me. I was heartbroken and devastated. I felt betrayed as I had spent 7 years of my life with this woman, and it all felt like a lie now. When I confronted her, she told me that she had to live her truth, and that she tried to suppress her identity because she didn't come to terms with it till she met her partner. When I asked whether she loved me, she told me that while she loves me, it's different than how she loved her new partner. This broke my heart even further. The divorce was quick, as she did not want anything from me, and we agreed to a 50-50 split of custody. But I decided to go no contact with her and handled the custody transfer process through my sister, female 27, whom I moved in with after the divorce. I sold the house, and we mutually agreed that the excess money from the sale will be in a college fund for our son in the future. I could not bear to stay in that house anymore, as it kept reminding me of her betrayal. For context, she introduced her partner as her work friend, and I believed her. I had no reason to suspect anything, and they had several girls' nights, but I figured that they were probably using these as cover for the affair. For 6 months, I was in a depressive state because I didn't know where I went wrong. But this is one of those scenarios that anything I would have done wouldn't have been able to make it better. This made me even more depressed, and the fact that all the vows and little things that she said at our wedding were all just lies, trying to keep up a ruse, made it even worse. The two people that got me through this state were my sister, whom I am eternally grateful for helping with her nephew and helping me while maintaining her career. The other person that got me through this was my college ex-girlfriend. Around 4 months after the divorce, we reconnected at a reunion, and she really helped through the worst of it as a friend. Around a year after the divorce, we started officially dating, and I introduced her to my son. During all this time, my ex's partner had been having limited interactions with my son. This was not because of me saying anything, but my ex-wife wanted him to adjust to his new reality. My son is in that weird age that he understands what's going on, but he doesn't really understand what's actually going on. If you know, you know. He understands that mommy has a girlfriend and that me and his mom are not together anymore. I'm pretty happy, considering we didn't really talk to him about the queer plus stuff, because we had decided that we can talk about this when he's a bit older, but I'm happy that he's come to terms with the divorce. Around 8 months ago, my ex said that she was officially moving in with her partner and that she was engaged. At this point, I still was on no contact except brief conversations that concerned our son. She invited me to the wedding, but I declined. They were planning to have a destination wedding in Spain where her girlfriend lives. She wanted to take our son to the wedding, and he would have to miss school for a week, since she wanted him to meet her girlfriend's family as well. I told her that missing school for a week does not make sense, and that she should plan her wedding when he has vacation, since she doesn't have a fixed date yet. She argued that most likely they won't have a date that will align with his vacations, and that they are getting married as soon as possible. I relented and agreed, since I didn't want to interact with her anymore, and it was well within her rights to have her son at her wedding. The problem started when my son came back after the wedding. He was supposed to stay with me since we have a flexible week-in, week-out custody arrangement. She wanted to take my son on her honeymoon so that he has a chance to bond with his new stepmother. I told her that she had already had 2 weeks with him since she had custody for a week before the wedding, and that I wanted to spend some father-son time with him. I told her that it was well within my rights and that she should go spend some time with her new wife. She argued that since our son's interactions with her partner were limited because of her busy schedule, that this was a great opportunity for them to bond. I told her that she had 2 weeks for him to get to know her partner. She said that they were busy with the wedding and did not have time. I told her that I had taken vacation days for us to go to a motorcycle expo and build a Lego set, 2 things that my son absolutely loves. She kept arguing, and I finally told her that the custody was placed for a reason, and that's the one thing I will not negotiate on. She got angry at me and left. Me and my son had a great experience. I even got him one of those kid-sized motorcycles since he liked them so much. Over the next few weeks, we returned back to our week-in, week-out routine. One day, I find that my ex posted a photo shoot of them and my son under a caption of #lesbianmommies. I thought that it was a post and it probably meant nothing, but it was showing them as a family, and something about that did not sit right with me. When I got my son for the week, I asked him if his mom was saying anything to him. He relented a bit, but told me that his mother had been trying to convince him to call her partner his mom. This was a shock to me, as I never expected my ex to do this. Then again, I've been wrong about these things before. I asked him if that's something he wanted, and he told me that he is much more comfortable calling her by her first name and that he feels weird with calling two people mom. I told him it's okay and that he shouldn't feel pressured to do anything. I called my ex and asked her to meet up because this was serious and I wanted to discuss this. I confronted her about this, and she told me that since her and her partner were married, it's only natural for our son to have two moms now. I told her that it's not okay for her to try and convince him into calling her partner his mom because she is not his mother. She doesn't have an active parenting role in his life, and that any major parenting decisions require the two of us. She tried making an argument that since me and my girlfriend were becoming serious now, and that eventually I might want him to start calling her mom. I told her, even if we become serious, I won't try and convince our son to start calling her mom because he already has two parents and he doesn't need more. Then she dropped the bombshell on me. She told me that she and her partner were hoping that eventually down the line they can file for adoption. I'll still be able to visit and see my son, but she wanted her and her wife to have legal guardianship because they wanted to build a new family with them. I told her absolutely not, and that our partners have no say in our kids' lives. She accused me of being hateful for denying her the right to a complete family, and I told her, while her life is her choice, our son's life has to be a thing that we decide ourselves. I ended the conversation there and told my son to tell me if her mother tries to force him to do anything that he doesn't want to do. I found out 3 weeks later that my ex had enrolled our son in Spanish lessons, which he told me he hated. For context, my ex is Latin and her partner is Spanish, so they prefer speaking Spanish to each other. We had decided to raise our son in English since she speaks English better than Spanish, and I don't speak any Spanish. When I discussed this with her, she said she wanted our son to connect more to his heritage. I said I didn't have a problem with that, but we had tried this several times before when we were married, and he showed no interest. She argued that it might be different this time as he'll have two Spanish speakers at home. I told her I support bilingualism because two languages are always an advantage, especially for kids. But if he doesn't want to do it, there's no reason to force him. Maybe try another language? She accused me of denying our son his roots and his identity, and went on about me denying her right to a family. My girlfriend usually stays out of these matters, but advised me to contact my lawyer. My lawyer said that even if they send an adoption notice, I can contest it, and it would take something exceptional, like abandonment, for my contest to be rejected. My ex keeps posting our son as part of her new family, and it's starting to trigger me. 2 weeks ago, I interacted for the first time with my ex's new wife after the divorce. She contacted me and asked to meet up. She told me my ex had finally started to recover from the trauma of coming out and building a new life with her, and I'm now getting in the way of their happiness. She accused me of being emotionless and uncaring through our divorce and guilt-tripping her into agreeing to my demands of 50-50 custody. She said I should agree to the eventual adoption in a few years because she has always wanted a son, and that I will still remain my son's dad and can still visit him. I told her I don't care about her emotional state during the divorce and that my demands were fair. I told her that if they want to create this image of a perfect family, they should have another kid that has no connection to me. I feel like this is affecting my son more than anything. He's a lot less happy than he was a few months ago as we had started to adjust to this new reality. Now for the first update. It's been crazy seeing everyone's reactions to the situation, and I wanted to share a quick update. My son and I have been going to therapy since the divorce. He was doing well until the whole mom saga happened. Her family effectively disowned her after coming out. They weren't even aware of the affair when she came out to them. They still spend time with my grandson under the condition that they don't badmouth my ex or preach their views to him. They agreed because they valued a relationship with their grandson over any political view. I've been part of every interaction they've had with him because I was worried they might say something. Thankfully, this hasn't been the case. Her extended family also cut her off, some for the affair and some for her being gay. Our mutual friends also cut her off because of the affair. They were my work buddies and their spouses' partners. I didn't ask them to do anything. They decided on their own. I was glad when she told me she had made a friend on her own, as she used to complain about not liking her colleagues. We all know how that turned out. I'm pretty sure they're not planning to skip the country. I have all my son's documents, and we decided during the divorce that I would keep them because she was still figuring out where to go, and since I was moving in with my sister, the chances of them getting misplaced were low. I haven't had any demands for documents, and she returned the passport to me when we came back. The whole adoption thing probably stems from my son's close relationship with his mother. The only times he's complained to me is when she asked him to call her partner Mom and made him do Spanish classes he didn't want. We did everything for him equally during our marriage, but I had to travel out of state frequently during Infection 19 because my parents were sick. My sister also agreed with this. I contacted my lawyer, who is also my friend. He told me the same thing as last time. It would take something unusual for the adoption process to go through, like child abandonment. He also said there are a bunch of idiots who don't know how the law works. He told me that if the "we want to adopt him" thing is real, and if she's talking badly about me to my son and I can prove it, I could get custody. This hasn't been the case, as I've not heard my son say his mom says bad things about me. This brought me relief. I plan to contact my ex with the following conditions. 1. We both install parenting apps and document all interactions. 2. No more mention of adoption or calling her partner mom. 3. No more posting images of my son as part of their perfect queer family because I don't want my son's photos on the internet when he's so young. Now for the final update. I talked to my ex today. She was busy yesterday, and I wanted more time to gather my thoughts. When we met, I put forth my demands. She said the parenting app idea seems fine and that she has no problem with it. She got sad when I told her to drop the idea of adoption and calling her partner mom, as it's just not going to happen. She told me that her family was pressuring her to settle down. I proposed after a year of dating and did not know this. Getting pregnant so soon after getting married was not what she had in mind. She got pregnant 1.5 years after getting married. She told me she was in the closet all her life because of her parents and thought marrying me would cause her feelings to subside. She was happy until she met her partner. She did go through postpartum depression after giving birth, but I did not know she didn't want to get pregnant so soon. She then told me that the reason they wanted to adopt my son was because she wanted to start new. She said she was never really happy during our marriage and that with her new wife, she could have the family she always dreamt of having. She didn't want my son to grow up to resent her for being a homosexual, as he doesn't have exposure to people like her apart from her and her partner. I told her that this is not going to happen and that he has had a lot of exposure to people from her community. I told her that seems like a reason for separating my son and me, and that she is making up some random reason to make it seem like it is. After some arguing, she told me the real reason why she and her partner want to adopt my son. Apparently, they wanted to adopt my son because her wife and she are considering moving to Spain in a few years. I told her that she can't do that and that the legal framework supports me and my rights in both countries. She told me she knew this, and that's why they wanted me to sign adoption. I told her that she was crazy, that she in no way is able to do this, as she still needs my permission to take him out of the country, just like when she did when they got married in Spain. I also researched a bit on the laws regarding this, so I know this is not happening. She told me again that they have done their research, that this was to see if I would agree. If I agreed, they would consider moving. If I didn't, they wouldn't, because she doesn't want to be separated from my son. I again emphasized that this is not going to happen, and that if she tries anything or says anything to my son, I will sue for full custody. She got sad again and told me that they wanted to check with me first. I told her, in what world would you expect me to give you and your wife full custody? First, you divorce me, leave me for a woman, and then expect me to sign over my child and act like nothing happened. I told her from this point on, we will document everything, every interaction we have, and that if I even get a whiff of you trying to pull something, I will sue for full custody. She got a bit scared at the idea of losing full custody. I guess she didn't really consider me doing that, and she agreed. I then told her not to paint this picture of a picture-perfect queer family that they are trying to do, because that is not going to happen. Our son has a mom and a dad that he spends half his time with each, not two moms. He is not your affair partner's son. He is your son and mine. If you want a child with her, you can do so on your own. I then told her that the courts are more likely to side with me than you in this case because of the thing you have been trying to do, and the fact that I work from home and spend more actual time with him than you and your wife. I have been trying for him to have a stable relationship with both parents since the divorce, because I don't want him to resent either of us. But if you try to remove me from his life, I will sue for full custody and deal with any resentment he has for either of us. I didn't want to argue anymore, and I left the room. I secretly recorded the conversation because I wanted to have proof in case anything happens in the future. Honestly, I have been very angry at my ex since the divorce. I have not shown it around her and my son because I don't want her to use this against me in any way and have been going to therapy, but I am still internally angry. The comments she made today about our marriage really hurt me even more. I've spent 7 years with this woman, and her betrayal still makes me angry to this day. When I got home, I contacted my lawyer friend, and he again reiterated that they would have to kidnap him. I asked him if there was anything else we could do, and he said that the current agreement is very thorough. We have made sure of that. If I want full custody or not is up to me, but I have to be sure that I want to put me or my son through the whole process. I don't want my son to grow up without either of his parents, as that is just not healthy for him. That is why I won't sue for full custody now. If they are stupid enough to kidnap him, I'm sure they are not. Then the law sides with me anyway. I know what position her partner is at their workplace, so I know they are making good money to leave it all behind for no good reason. As for the passport thing, I have all his documents, and all things such as notifying travel, hospital visits, and others are already in the signed custody agreement. We already have a legal framework for all this. I am not going to sue for full custody now because I don't want that for my son. My ex-wife is still a good mother and loves him, and he enjoys spending time with her. Plus, my son is the type of person to openly voice out what he doesn't find okay to me, so I will know if they continue any of their nonsense. On a more positive note, I'm not against Spanish lessons, but he doesn't like them. I was just suggesting that he try some language he likes. There are other languages out there. I didn't say it to my ex then, but now I know that she was trying for him to learn Spanish because of the Spain thing. Thank you to everyone for their support. It really helped me with understanding the problem. I didn't even consider her considering moving to Spain until I read the comments. Am I the idiot for choosing my girlfriend's family over my own on Christmas Day? I am an oops baby, something my family has constantly reminded me of since I was little because it's funny. My brother, who is 44, and my sisters, who are 42 and 39, were all planned by our parents. I was the result of a drunken fun night on New Year's Eve, according to my dad. I've never been close to my siblings due to the large age gap. My parents were never mean, but they never went out of their way to show me the same love that my siblings got, or at least that's how it's always felt. For instance, when I was younger, I was in choir. I used to love to sing, but no one in the family ever came to see me sing. I was told, "We are busy," or "We have other plans," so I gave up singing. But I remember them going to my other siblings' dance things, so I gave up on doing anything other than working on my computer and playing with my friends. I stuck to just getting good with computers, and in doing so, ended up in a good job where I've been working for almost 10 years now. I started at the bottom of IT and now have worked my way up to being a manager for about 15 people. However, being in IT means I have to occasionally miss out on family events, as well as some holidays, because where I work, it's 24/7 split into 12-hour shifts. Due to this, over the years, I've been accidentally forgotten to be invited because we figured you were working without actually asking me. This has been a recurring issue with my family, forgetting to ask me to join them or making excuses as to why I wasn't invited. However, one thing I could always rely on was being able to show up on Christmas Eve. That's when we celebrate Christmas and still feel like I belonged, even if it was later in the evening. Most of the love I felt came from my nieces, who always think of me as the cool uncle and are always happy to see me. I happened to stop over at my folks yesterday, and while there, I saw my nieces. My folks tend to watch them on the weekends. That's a whole different story. But my nieces started asking if I was excited for Christmas as we get to hang out in a cabin this year. I looked confused and asked my mom what they were talking about, and she looked obviously embarrassed and said everyone made plans back in June to celebrate in a rental cabin in Vermont for Christmas. I kid you not. She looked at me and said, "We all figured you had to work again and couldn't get the time off, so everyone figured you wouldn't mind missing one Christmas." Had they said something, I could have taken the time off. To say I was and am heartbroken is an understatement. Like I get I'm an oops baby and not really ever thought of much, if ever, but to just be left alone for Christmas on purpose? I mean, how does a family do that to someone? I just turned around, hugged my nieces goodbye, and left. I didn't even say goodbye to my mom. I pride myself on being a strong individual, especially given how my family has always treated me. But not gonna lie, I actually cried on the way home. Never in my life have I felt so rejected, especially by people who are supposed to love me. I couldn't even ask her when they planned on telling me, or if they planned on telling me. What would happen if I showed up after work and no one was there? I just left. I probably should have, but I was hurting too much to really care at the moment. Now, here's my dilemma. I have a new girlfriend, Zoe, who is 27, and by new, I mean we've only been going out and seeing each other since just after Thanksgiving. I sent her a text when I got home telling her what happened, as I had to talk to someone. She kinda knows about my family. Being in such a new relationship, I didn't want to unload all my baggage on her. But she does know that me and my family don't have a standard type of relationship. Anyway, she has invited me to go with her to celebrate Christmas with her family. I haven't given her an answer yet. In previous relationships, we were together months before the invite to Christmas ever came up. However, this is the first relationship where it's only been a few weeks. So I'm asking for advice. Would going with Zoe to her family's be a good idea? Being that this is so new, is there a potential downside? Would it be better to be gracious and thank her for the invite but decline, or accept the invite and go? By the way, I do have to work Christmas Eve again this year, but not Christmas Day, so that's a plus, I guess. Now for a few comments. One commenter said my family is full of terrible people and asked about the invitation from my girlfriend. I replied that it would be from about 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., so like half a day, and they live just outside the city where we both live, so it wouldn't be a far drive. I also mentioned that I don't want to seem like a pity case, even though I kinda am, and that I really like Zoe. Another commenter encouraged me to go and not feel like a pity case, saying there are lots of people who end up being alone on the holidays for a multitude of reasons. Someone else pointed out that people always worry about being a pity case, but it does feel nice to do something kind for others, so there's a mutual benefit. Another commenter noted that the way my family has been treating me since forever most probably skewed my sense of normalcy. They suggested that it's not uncommon to invite non-romantic friends who are alone for Christmas, and that I should go and not feel like a pity case. I responded, thanking them for the advice and saying I was trying to think of what I would say if they asked. Their comment was a really good idea. Now for the update. 6 days later. First, thanks to those who commented on my first post. I wasn't really sure if I should go or not, but it was the best decision I ever made. When I told my girlfriend that I would love to go with her, she was really happy. I did what others suggested and bought a really nice bottle of wine for her family and a few gifts for my girlfriend. I expected a bit of awkwardness when we arrived, but none of that happened. When we arrived and I met her family, I was treated just like I belonged there. I had a great time. We had some really great food and played some games. Overall, it was a great experience and much different than any Christmas I ever had with my family. Speaking of which, they called me while I was at my girlfriend's family. I don't think they were happy about it by the tone of her voice, lol. When they called, we were in the middle of playing Pictionary and everyone was having a good time. She asked where I was, and I told her. I wished her a Merry Christmas and hung up the phone and then turned it off. I wasn't going to let them ruin a good time. When it was time to go, everyone thanked me for coming and said they hoped I had a good time. I don't think I could wipe the smile off my face even if I wanted to. It was such a nice and loving group of people. I know this relationship is still super new, but the amount of love I received from my girlfriend and family really makes me hope that this works out. I've never felt in my whole life what I felt on Christmas. As someone posted on my first post, it felt like a Hallmark movie of sorts. I know it's just all the new feelings, but if anything I've learned, I deserve more than what little my family gives me. Thanks again, everyone, for talking me into going. Best decision ever. Now for a few comments. Hyena Shot 8896 said, I'm glad you went, and I'm glad you turned off your phone. Don't let the people who have basically ignored you all your life bring you down. Golden Dragon 001 shared, that's how I felt too when I went to my girlfriend's family gathering. I realized my family was toxic and couldn't tell why until I met hers. They were just so loving and fun. I enjoyed their games, jokes, and how they just treated me like one of them. That's when I knew that I can fit into this family, and this was something I want for my future, a family like hers. Debomatai commented, this made me tear up. I'm so happy you went and had a great time. Meeting them so early and seeing how they are with you is reflective of Zoe as a person too, and I'm so glad she rose to the occasion. Your family has shown you who they are. Believe them. Start refilling your cup with good energy this year. Finally, Jupiter Kitty Girl said, these be big green flags. Apples and trees, you know. This family sounds wonderful. Am I the idiot for breaking up with my boyfriend after discovering he had an affair with my mom in high school? Original post. My boyfriend Derek and I met through mutual friends 6 months ago, and we immediately hit it off. He is sweet, funny, kind, and just generally a good guy. He is super extroverted, and I have never seen him dislike or not click with anyone. I mentioned him to my parents a couple of times, and they said they were excited to meet him. My parents live a road trip away, so Derek and I had to book a hotel nearby. About 2 weeks ago, we dropped all of our stuff in the hotel and arrived at my parents' house. My parents are the most welcoming people you'll ever meet. They have met some of my past significant others and have always been warm and kind. Since both my parents and Derek are charismatic and welcoming, I thought that dinner would go smoothly, but I was wrong. It didn't start off too bad. My parents and Derek seemed a bit awkward, but I assumed he was just nervous. We sat for dinner, and my parents asked us a couple of questions, like how we met and how serious the relationship is. I've never seen Derek stutter or hesitate before this dinner, but he did. As soon as I finished eating, he thanked my parents for dinner and said we had to go. It felt like he was rushing to get out of the house. When we got to the hotel room, he ran to the bathroom and I heard him throw up. He said he felt sick and he was going to head back home, but he insisted I stay and enjoy the rest of the trip without him. I agreed since I really missed my parents, and he seemed to want to be alone. I texted him a couple of times asking how he was doing and if he felt better, but he didn't reply. After 2 days passed, I started to get really worried that maybe he was really sick and had to go to the hospital or something, so I cut the trip short and headed back home. I went to his apartment and saw he was okay. I asked him how he was doing and why he wasn't replying, and he said he felt fine and that I was overreacting. He told me he still felt sick and he wanted to be alone. I went back home and texted him asking if I did anything wrong and if our relationship was okay since he was acting so weird and cold. A week has gone by since the text message, and he has not replied. Derek is the last person I'd expect to ghost me. I'm torn between wanting to give him space and wanting answers. How do I even reach out to him without pushing him further away? Now for the update. Hey, sorry I didn't reply to that many of your comments. They were mostly just saying Derek was secretly my brother, which is horrifying, so I wasn't sure how to reply. I tried to reply to questions when I saw them pop up. The past few days have been a mess, but now that everything is settled, I thought I would update all of you. I took your advice and decided to speak to my parents rather than Derek to discover if maybe they said anything or knew each other in the past, like many of you suggested they might. 4 days ago, I called my mom and told her about Derek's weird reaction after our dinner. I asked for advice or if she knew what happened. She was silent for a moment, and I heard her start crying. She started apologizing, and I didn't understand what she was trying to tell me at first. Eventually, I got her to calm down, and she told me what had happened. My mom is a high school teacher, and apparently Derek was her student in his senior year, and she told me that they had an affair. She didn't give me that many details. Honestly, I don't even want to know. All she said is that they only slept together once before she shut it down, and that my father knew, and they had attended couples counseling years ago to work through this. She cried a lot and said it was her greatest regret. Then she told me she wanted me to break it off with Derek because he brought back really awful memories, and she found the age gap concerning. She's one to talk about age gaps. But ultimately, she said it was my decision, and she didn't want her past mistakes to ruin my relationship. I went to Derek's apartment again, and he invited me in. He said he had to tell me something, but I stopped him and told him I had already talked to my mom and knew everything. He promised me he had no idea up until the point we had come over for dinner, where he immediately recognized her. He apologized for ghosting me and said he just didn't know what to say, and he was scared that he would ruin my relationship with my parents, or maybe ruin their marriage. I forgave him, but told him that the whole situation was just way too messy for me, and he agreed. So yeah, that's how my past few days have gone down. Honestly, I do kind of miss Derek, but not too much since the whole banging my mom thing is a massive turnoff. Thank you for all the replies. I feel like I will never see my mom the same again. How can I work on rebuilding our relationship and trust moving forward?